Okay, so welcome to my Flutter class. So this recording basically just for my class that use Flutter for teaching. And in this video, I want to talk about Flutter and Flutter installation. And for those who are not familiar with Flutter, Flutter is basically one of the cross-platform application development kit that focus on building a beautiful user interface across all devices. There are others. For example, you can use React Native to build something in that this the same idea of how Flutter works. However, Flutter they are basically wrap or allow for developer to develop for cross-platform, a fully cross-platform environment. I can say that if you go to the Flutter .dev, which is their um, main website, and you can go to the multi-platform here. So you can see that Flutter can develop for mobile, for web, for desktop, for embedded, using a single code base, but I have to put it as a code there because that if you want to develop for all these platforms, which for example, like just one application for all platform, you have to make sure that whatever library that you import into the project, they are compatible across the platform, because sometimes certain library, certain component that you want to include into your project, for example, for mobile, they're not compatible for web, or they're not compatible for desktop. But in general, you can develop a cross-platform or truly multi-platform application. But definitely there, by default, Flutter shine on mobile platform. You can develop either for Android or for iOS. So generally, this is basically their main strength for Flutter. So Flutter on mobile, this is for those who've been around since the Flutter first inception. Definitely you know Flutter already. But for those who are new, so this is Flutter. And as you can see here, Flutter on mobile, it basically one thing that is better, in my opinion, is that the ability to run as close as native development, native application. For example, like using Android Studio through Kotlin or through Java, and also maybe develop for iOS through Xcode using Swift. Um, so they are close, not 100%, I can say 90-95% close to the to the native development. So here you can see the UI developed using Flutter, all the goodness of this platform SDK. Um, and yeah, you can just browse around, look into the mobile section here. And there are plenty of big company that already use Flutter in as their main development platform. All right. So Flutter on iOS, yeah, definitely. You can develop for iOS. There are so many applications out there that already develop using Flutter, right? So you can take a look, and this is basically for mobile. For web, this is fairly not new. Flutter on web, it has been around for a while, but recently they just released one of the most important update. So Flutter on web, basically what it does is that they compile the APK, oh sorry, the Flutter code, which is Dart code, into a TypeScript JavaScript application. But before this, development on web, a little bit tricky because they don't support one very important features called hot reload. So hot reload basically allow you to update your UI without having your application to restart, or in this case for web, your web browser need to be refreshed again, and that usually will let you back to the first page, and that can be a little bit harder to develop. But with the recent release, with the I believe the 3.2 or 3.3 version, they already enable hot reload on web, so which basically allow you to develop web application using Flutter. That is a very great news. Um, and yeah, for other platform for desktop, which is if you want to develop exe file, which is for Windows application, so definitely you can. But again, you have to make sure that you have the development environment for Windows, or maybe for Xcode for Mac. But yeah, you can use the same code and run as desktop app. For embedded, this is also quite new. It's also support for embedded UI. But for example, like for car um, operating system. All right, so that's basically for multi-platform development environment. For development, so this is basically features that you can see that available in Flutter. And the things with Flutter is one of the most important, I believe, in my opinion, is the hot reload features. This basically cut short a lot of development time, because when the when you change anything inside your code, you need the code to be hot reload faster, and then you need to be able to see the changes on the UI very fast. So this feature for me is basically I cannot live without these features anymore. Um, and custom widget, and this is basically sometimes where Flutter shine, and sometimes this is also where it falls for certain people, because in Flutter, Flutter is basically UI toolkit, means that you build user interface with Flutter, and the build user interface Flutter depend heavily on the concept of UI widgets. The UI widgets component, like for example, you have a button, you have an input text, you have a label, you have an icon. So those called widgets, the UI widgets. And the best thing about Flutter is that its ability um, to uh, to mix around or to customize this component, and you can combine them in a way depend on your creativity, depend on your UI needs. So you can design a very customized UI with Flutter. All right, so this is custom widget adaptive design. Definitely, you can definitely implement media query through adaptive design, making sure that on different screen sizes, on mobile, on tablet, on screens, large screen, so you can implement adaptive design with definitely with Flutter. IDE support, so Flutter basically best to work with Visual Studio Code, or maybe or Android Studio. But I would like I would love with develop Flutter with Visual Studio Code. Reason being is that it is much lighter in terms of development environment compared to Android Studio. And also Flutter also an open source. Okay, so open source means that there's a lot of people contributed to the development, not just from the core Flutter team, which is supported by Google. There are others who are willing to join or willing to contribute their package, their custom widget, custom component, custom services, and all can be accessed through the pub dev and easily integrated into your project. Right, so and also Flutter also provide example, a lot of example that you can follow and look into GitHub repository. Okay, all right, so there are also tools and everything built into Flutter dev tools. So this can be look into this later. Debugging tools, widgets, network memory profiler. So all those features comes with Flutter SDK. Okay, so yeah, documentation and yeah, definitely this class we don't have notes and everything. Uh, all the reference basically comes from here. Okay, from here because sometimes when there's new changes comes to the Flutter, because Flutter they updated a lot. The Flutter teams updated their SDK a lot, so means that you have to follow their documentation, updated documentation. So just go here. The rest is just some features. All right, so that's basically the development. And later we can just go into details on this. I'm going to forward to the development, installation, and everything. Okay, so for development, can start with the installation. Okay, so Flutter can run on multi-platform. Flutter SDK itself can run on available on all platforms. So for example, on Windows, on Linux, on Mac OS. So you can just install for those platform. So to start with the development, so we can just go here, get started. So when you go to the get started here, you can choose your development platform. Okay, so here, because I'm running on Windows, so you can just select on Windows, but if you are running on different operating system, they are also available on this Mac, Linux, and Chrome OS. But one thing that I have to put forward is basically the requirement for development, the hardware requirements. So if you focus on, or if you want to develop, this is very important. If you want to develop for for mobile application, you need better hardware. Reason being is that um, the one of the features available, which if you want to develop on mobile, is Android Virtual Device, the AVD, the ability for you to run an full-fledged Android operating system on your PC, on your computer, your Windows, your Mac, your Linux. So you need good performance hardware. So the minimum requirement in this case, like for example, if you choose one like here, um, like even from here, it tells you, do you want to develop for Android only, for web, or for desktop? Okay, so you have to choose either one, because for web, the requirement is not that very high. Okay, because you don't have to install the additional SDK for web. But for Android, you need to install Android Studio, which for those who are familiar with Android Studio, they needs a lot of storage, a lot of RAM, a lot of resources to be able to run them properly. So the recommendation to have your Windows to have your development for mobile, uh, I would suggest for me like the best, the highest as possible. The minimum requirement for this is, I have to say this, like the minimum is 16 gig of RAM, 16 gig minimum. But that is the bare minimum. You need more than that actually. If you can get, you can push to 24 gig, or if you can push to 32 gig, that would be better. But if you're running on M2, M3 Mac, uh, with 16 gig of RAM, not with the 8 gig of RAM. 8 gig of RAM, you're going to suffer. 16 gig of RAM for Mac, that would be great. Yes, you can still run on 8 gig, but they are struggling, right? So my best bet here for Mac is 16 gig. For Windows is 32 gig or 24 gig and above. 16 gig is the bare minimum. You can run them, but you start to see your computer struggling to do this. The other one is that the other requirement that you need is basically you need a graphic card. I have to say this bluntly. You need a 3D graphic card, not the built-in graphic card that comes with your laptop. So you have either you can have like RTX and from NVIDIA or for AMD, but as long as you have the graphic card, 4 gig of graphic card, at least 2 gig, 4 gig, more than enough. Okay. For Mac, they embedded the graphic card into the processor, the M3, M2 processor, so which is okay. But for me, I'm not quite sure because there are some compatibility issue that you're going to have to solve because there's a layer of a translation that you need to run on the Mac machine, on the M processor. But for Android, for Intel, for PC, you can run on AMD or you can even run on Intel, at least Intel i5. For AMD, equivalent to Intel i5. Okay, so for example, like mine here, it's, this one, no, sorry, it's a print screen. This one. Um, for example, like in my case, supposed to be able to see them. As manager, device manager is out here. It's supposed to be. Okay, so in my case, mine is I'm running on GeForce RTX 360 SSD drive, M.2 drive, and I'm running, there's no RAM here, right? This one. So I can still run this command. Really forgot those. I totally forgot later. All right. All right. So yeah, that's the thing. So you need a good performance machine for this. Okay, but for web, yeah, it should be no problem because the requirement is just is quite menial. 8 gig of RAM should be fine for you to run this. Okay, so now for the mobile. So for the mobile part, if you want to install for mobile, the things that you need here, you can just follow the steps shows here. There are a few software that you need to install if you want to run on Android. First thing is you need to install Git. Okay, so if you go, you need to install the following software, the Git software. Okay, so the Git software for Windows, later on, because you're going to use a lot of pulling from Git repository, push and pull from Git repo. So make sure that you have your Git installed. And also you need Android Studio to have your Android SDK to be able to compile to Android. For Mac, you need Xcode. Okay, you need to install Xcode. You need to install all the requirement to be able to have that. Okay, so for Android Studio, you can just go to the Android Studio to do the installation. For Git, you can just go to Git and download the latest Git version and install them. For Android Studio, you can go to the Android Studio and download the latest version. So latest version is called Android Studio Nawal. So you have to make sure that you install them properly. So in my case, my Android Studio is outdated version. I'm running Android Studio Flamingo. So this is my Android Studio. But there are a few things that you need to do before you do the Android Studio installation. Oh, but before that, make sure that you have your Git account configured and connected. Okay, so you need your Git account, GitHub account. So this is my GitHub. You can just go to my github.com/Ahmadhanis. And one thing that you please follow my GitHub. A lot of the class codes and everything will be dumped here, will be pushed here. You can make it as your reference, your main reference here. So follow my GitHub. All right, coming back to here. So once you install your Android Studio, because Android Studio require a lot of storage, a lot of resources, you head over to the SDK manager here, this part here. And during the installation, make sure that you're connected to the internet, all right? Good internet connection, because you need to download and update your API. So at the moment, I'm running API, Android API version 35 and fully installed. Just choose one, should be okay. Like in my case, I use API 35 and also Android 13 Tiramisu. I do have, for the compatibility issue, a few projects before this, I'm still running Android 13. The Android 13.0, this means that the Android 13 version. But there are API version, which is much latest version. And now the new version is called Baklava, Android Baklava. But I don't have this. There's no need for me to use it. For me, it's just fine to run this on Android API 35 or even Android 13, which is the stable version of the Android for now. So make sure that you fully install this. If not, you just start on this and then just OK or apply. It will download the latest version. Second things that you need to do is the SDK build tool. I'm not quite sure the latest version will automatically select which one. The version I'm running now is version 36. The previous version I'm using is 35. Sometimes I can just remove all this because those are obsolete. If you're running on 36, it should be fine. So get that also. And this is basically the latest structured. I don't see this before this, but by default, they will do that the installation for you automatically. The Android command line, the CMake if you want to compile for desktop application, emulator, right? For emulator, that depend. If you're running on Intel, this is mine. Okay, I'm running Intel. AMD Intel with GeForce 12 gig, 32 gig of RAM. So this is basically my current configuration. Okay. So AMD Intel, you might need to install the Android emulator hypervisor driver. So this is basically just to speed up your Android VSC. My platform tool, I haven't yet updated. Maybe I can update later today. Okay, so just make sure that all this completely installed. So once you have that completed, the second thing that you need to go is here is basically plugin. Okay, you need to go to plugin, search for Flutter and install. Okay, and just complete all the installation. Okay, so once you get that running, complete, the other thing that you have to check first is your virtual device. Okay, select on that. You can create one if you don't have. So this is basically your Android virtual device. So the Android virtual device is basically for you to test, that allow for you to test your application on the mobile device virtually on the real Android operating system. So in my case, I already have defined two. If you don't have one, just create one. So for example, like if I want to create one, so I can select, if I want to have phone, so I can just select phone, or tablet, much larger size. But you have to understand, AVD require a lot of memory, a lot of storage, a lot of resources. So if you're running on lower end machine, don't choose the highest resolution ever. Just choose something, for example, like this one, or maybe like if you're on the larger size, like this one should be okay with the resolution of a full HD. But don't choose this one. This is 4K. This is 2K. Okay, so your computer is going to suffer if you're not having like graphic card and so on. Right. So just choose one. So for example, like if I want to run, because I'm running on good machine, so let's say I want to try on Pixel. So next, so here you need to choose which operating system that you want to. If you don't have yet any, you might need to download them first and then wait until the download completed about like 1 gig plus plus and continue next until completed. I don't want to create anything new because I already have one. I'm going to show you a run to run one of my AVD, which is this one. So I'm running this one, so wait for a while. Because it's already run at the back, so you can see that I already run before. So they just run back the snapshot. So you can see this is very, very fast running on my machine. Okay. Right. So this is a full Android operating system. You can test them out. You can check. Oh, it's not performing well. Okay, sometimes yeah. All right. So that's basically my AVD. So once you confirm that your AVD is working, means that you can now continue with your Flutter. Okay, so I can close this and just close this. All right, so done. So next, what you need to do now is basically your text editor. So here I use Visual Studio Code. Okay, so you can just go ahead and download Visual Studio Code, VSC. So since I already have VSC, there's no need for me to download them. But yeah, you can do that first if you don't have one. Okay. All right, so this is your VSC, Visual Studio Code. But for VSC to work, you need to install a few things from the extension. But before doing that, please make sure that continue with the Flutter SDK installation. Okay, so Flutter SDK installation, there are a few methods available if you want to install Flutter SDK. Here, there's a new one. You can also use Visual Studio Code to install Flutter, or you can just download manually and install and do the installation that. Okay. So here you can just download them as a zip file, and then you can just unzip them into a folder. But you have to set your what do you call it, the all the path, everything manually. Okay. So for example, like mine, I did it a long time ago. So the folder that I installed my Flutter is under drive C, folder Flutter. So this is basically my default Flutter directory. Okay. Okay, so download and then unzip. Make sure that you have something like this. Okay, Flutter, and this is all the directory that I have for my Flutter. So once you unzip, then you need to do something first. You have to set path to your Flutter bin. So that basically can be achieved through environment. And go to the environment variables, and you have to set your path either through your user path, or you can also set through your system path. Okay, here I set to my system path. You can see that the C Flutter bin directory there. Okay, so just create one. If you don't have, yeah, just new, and then set the directory to C Flutter bin, which is this directory here. So C Flutter bin. So this is the directory that you want to set up here, right? Set up your shop here. So once you set it okay, and then you can just go okay, completed with your Flutter installation. But you have to test your Flutter installation. To test your Flutter installation, you need to go to your command prompt first, type in cmd, and then type in, if you set up your environment correctly, you should be able to run the following command called flutter doctor. Okay, so in my case, everything is okay. It shows all the requirement needed here is okay. Sometimes if you do have some error or missing here something, for example, like Visual Studio development for Windows app, if you don't have this, don't worry, because this is only for if you want to develop desktop application. You have to download another SDK tools called Visual Studio community edition, and you need to do that installation first to be able to get this completed. For web, you need Chrome, one of the development requirement for web. So install Chrome. And also for web developer, you don't have to install Android Studio, the Android toolchain, and sometimes there's no need for you to do that. So you have error, you're going to have warning here. But sometimes here also they do some notification calls that you need to accept certain licenses. So you can just copy the command that given there and then paste it here. And you should be able to accept all the licenses. Yes, 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 yes. Okay, just follow the instructions in the Android toolchain. Okay, other than that, should be okay. So if you seeing this, means that you're doing fine, you're doing okay. But if you have something wrong there, so you might need to review your installation again. Okay. All right. So in my case, everything look okay, everything look fine, and I can just now start to develop Flutter application. All right, so once you confirm that your Flutter is working, your Flutter SDK is working, you can just go back to your Visual Studio Code. Okay, and then go to your extension, type in Flutter. So here, just go to the Flutter extension and install. Okay, Some other extension that might be helpful later on, you can just install this one, Flutter Color, Pub Spec Assist, Flutter Tree, awesome Flutter Snippet. The rest, yeah, if you want to, but this is basically my go-to. Okay, this is basically my go-to. Right. Okay, so done ready all this. If you want to use Android Studio as your development environment, yeah, you can, but I don't suggest it because it's very heavy. And this is basically how to set up the Android license. Okay, so you can just Flutter Doctor Android licenses if this is your first time. Just yes, 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 yes. To check development setup, you can see here Flutter Doctor or Flutter Doctor -V for verbose mode. And then that's it. That's basically the installation for Flutter. I'm not going to show you how to develop the application yet. I just want you to prepare the development environment. I want to understand the development environment so that later on when we start the class, we're going to start with the actual development. You don't have to waste your time to do the installation and everything. I think that is all that I want to share with you. And even the instructions here also very, very good that you can follow them. And yeah, good luck installation. Either for my mobile class or for my web class. For mobile class, definitely you need to install the Android Studio or Xcode. For my web class, you don't have to install the Android Studio, just the Flutter SDK and also Chrome. That's it. Visual Studio Code definitely for the development. All right. And yes, and good luck with the installation and see you later. Bye bye.